Mackenzie.
Lamar.
Magic. I don't know why I go straight to Job from Arrested Development whenever magic and illusions come up. Were you an Arrested Development fan?
I didn't get through it, but I tried a couple
Okay,
of
but
times.
Will
So I know who
Arnett,
you're
you know
talking
that
about. I
voice.
know what we're
Yes,
talking
yeah.
about. Yes, but I didn't
Okay,
get
as
through
long
the
as
whole
you have a
thing.
feel for the Will Arnett voice. I don't know why I default to him and that final countdown song. But we're talking about the Prestige today, so I got kind of a multi-tiered question. First off, how do you feel about magic in general? Or do you seek out magic? Have you ever been a fan of magic? Do you have a favorite magician?
Do I have a favorite magician? Wow.
Doesn't everybody?
I don't I don't know. Literally the only magician that comes to mind is David Copperfield, and that's like a Vegas thing. So I don't know. Yeah. And he's like an illusionist, I guess. Which how I feel about magic is that there are no magicians, probably would be my argument. There's illusionists,
Michael, yes, okay.
Yeah, there's performers who present magical things. I don't know that I believe in this kind of magic, but I obviously believe that magic is real because, Hogwarts. So there's that.
So you want somebody on stage invoking like the Dark Lord and like actually making people disappear.
Isn't that so much more fun?
Yeah,
like I don't
so, yeah. Have you ever, here's a question. Have you ever paid for a magic show? Like gotten tickets to see someone?
I don't think so. Like the only thing I can think of is as a kid going to like the circus, where I think they had magic shows. And even like a state fair in Texas, for example, I feel like they have that here. And
it's just part of the package.
Right. It's just part of the package. I've never been like, what I need to do? Buy tickets to a magic show. Yeah, I don't think like that does not stand out in my mind. I feel like you have done this though.
I don't think I've ever sought out magic. I will have a magician at my wedding. That's a non-negotiable.
What?
Just kidding. But I've never paid for magic. I feel like if I had the opportunity, if I didn't have to go to Vegas for it and I could see like Penn and Teller, where it's kind of a magic plus comedy act, I'd probably pay to see them. I don't know how high I would
like
go,
I saw them, but like as a kid. Like
Okay. Interesting.
So wait, but those Vegas shows are like, easily what? $60 to $100 maybe. Would you pay
if
that?
If it's 60, I would say yes. I'm not going to spend over probably $80 on Penn and Teller. As cool as they seem and as funny as they seem. Yeah. I have one more question for you. Yeah, I have one more question in regards to this. Who do you think could perform a better magic trick? Batman or Wolverine? Because that's who's fighting in this movie. And I'm curious, their alter egos, which one do you think would do a better magic trick? That's pretty obvious, right? He's got like the whole League of Shadows thing. We're going to talk about it more next week, but
yeah, like the art of the illusion, Yeah, I feel like that's kind of his shtick. I feel like Wolverine would just like flip you off.
I actually was thinking
he would be like, absolutely not.
If you didn't know it was Wolverine and a guy on stage just chopped his arm off and then it grew back, you'd be like, holy shit, that's the coolest magic trick. So
fair.
He could cut his head off and still
could make money doing that for sure. Like he missed an opportunity maybe actually, to be honest. But
you remember that shitty Wolverine Origins movie?
Yeah.
At the beginning of that, they show them going through like a 200-year span and they're fighting in all these wars because they can't be killed and yada yada. There should have been a sequence where he just became a stage magician.
He's just a magician. He's just making bank. I mean, yeah, I think, listen, if that was his vibe, he could have made a fuck ton of money, but I feel like he would sit on the stage and flip everyone off and drink a bourbon. So there's that.
Make that disappear. Ayo.
100%. Oh, I love it. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Lamar.
And we are continuing with our November director-focused month, Nol-vember, for Christopher Nolan. Woohoo! This
banger
one
after banger after banger after banger.
Yeah. I mean, he just cranks out the hits, this guy. This one is interesting because I wasn't sure if I remembered it being as popular, but anyways, it was The Prestige is what we're going to talk about today.
I think it did fly under the radar. I don't remember seeing this until a few years. It also came out the same year as The Illusionist, so like I mixed those two up. I don't think at the time I realized it was a Christopher Nolan movie because this is sandwiched in between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. And I was looking at the IMDb and I'm like, talk about a fucking 5-year run. He's got these 3 movies plus Inception in 2010. And that is just a solid, like, not spoilers on ratings, but like 9, 10 out of 10 films, 4 in 5 years. It's bonkers.
For sure. I do remember this coming out, and I remember seeing it in theaters. And actually, yeah, The Illusionist did come out right before this. I think it was like literally a couple months apart. And I remember thinking, like, we were talking about this recently, of like how there's these themes that happen all at once, and we get like 2 or 3 of them. And I remember at the time being like, am I going to go see this one too? And I did see them both. They're, for both being like magic and illusion-y, they're really different, actually.
Very different. And I think this one is leaps and bounds better than The Illusionist. I didn't hate The Illusionist, but I didn't love it.
I think it's so different that they're kind of not comparable. Like, I really like The Illusionist, but I just think it's such a different vibe. But yeah, I mean, I think Christopher Nolan is the better filmmaker. So, but anyways, before we get into all that, what are we drinking?
So we are drinking from, as always, at Craft World. No vowels. Look them up on Instagram. Look at the social posts. This is called Danton's Obsession, which is going to be a running theme through today as we track Wolverine versus Batman and how this plays out. But this is 2 ounces of dry gin, 0.75 ounces of lime, 0.5 ounces of simple, 0.5 ounces of pomegranate liqueur. And I don't know if we're supposed to spoil the trick in this, but it's 0.25 ounces of mezcal. Otherwise, I don't know how else to make the drink. So you guys make it, but don't tell anybody what's in it. Because when I feel like we should have
gate kept it until the end of the episode, maybe. Like, maybe that was the trick.
Yeah. And yeah, as we said, this is Danton's Obsession. So drink up.
Cheers. How did yours come out? Let me see.
We're about same.
It's similar. Okay. Well, it's so funny. I ask because, like, as I first started pouring it out, it did not look great, and then all of a sudden the color like came through. So anyway, I was
very florally. I wasn't expecting it to be this, but I guess that's the pomegranate mixing with the lime. It's actually pretty damn good.
This is right up your alley. Yep. This is a 15-year-old girl cocktail. I love this for you. Love it. And it's pink. Exactly. Okay, well, let's get to some basics here really quick. So like we said, 2006 for this one, The Prestige, pretty highly rated across the board, 8.5 out of 10 on IMDb, 77% from critics, and that I think is interesting. And then a 92% from audiences. So
what did the
I didn't actually deep dive, and I kind of meant to.
This?
Yeah, I wonder if it's we'll get into some of the details, but I wonder if it's like the timeline. I wonder if it was like the structure of some of the reveals. Maybe it's that The Illusionist had just come out and they were like, I don't want to watch another fucking magician movie. I have no idea. Yeah. I have no idea. It's interesting. But anyways, as we said, director Christopher Nolan, who we're talking about all month, so you're going to hear us say 1,200 things that he's done, even though he's done like, what, 12? Oppenheimer, obviously we've spoken about on the pod before. Batman, all the Batmans, which we're going to talk about one of them next week. And then Dunkirk, which is one of the ones that Michael Caine appears in.
And I was going to throw out like a random Nolan fact. The cool thing about him that I didn't know is he never uses a second unit, at least as of like 2015 or so. Like, he prefers to oversee literally every single shot of a film. And I just think that's commendable, especially when you're working on these massive blockbusters, to be like, I want to be behind the camera for every single shot that goes onto film.
Oh, I mean, it totally checks out the like control freak of it all. I mean, you just, there are certain, actually who popped into my mind is totally different than him, but like, it's the Wes Anderson of it all, of like, I'm going to control every single image, every single frame, the production design. Like, you can look at a Christopher Nolan film and like aesthetically understand that it's him, you know? So yeah, I totally makes sense. But yeah, fun factoid. Now you need to make sure you get a new one next week. Okay. Thanks so much.
I'm going to do my best. It's hard to navigate IMDb's trivia section, but I'll do my best. No promises.
We thank you for your contributions. Jonathan Nolan, who obviously is Christopher Nolan's brother, as we've mentioned, he's written all these movies with him as well. And they both write this one. And the source material is Christopher Priest, another Christopher. He wrote the novel, He was an advising producer on this one as well. So I actually, fun fact, have the DVD of this, or the Blu-ray of this. So I watched all the like Blu-ray extras actually as part of this, and Christopher Priest is on it, and he's commenting on the production design and how close to the story it is. And he really he was just raving about their way that they produced this film, and he was raving specifically about them, adapting his novel into the screenplay. So that's cool.
That's neat. I was surprised that this is, I think, his only book adaptation to a film, because typically when one of your books gets adapted, like all of them get snatched up and people start pumping them out. I think he's mostly a sci-fi writer, and this doesn't, I mean, there's a little bit of sci-fi in this, but it doesn't feel like a sci-fi movie, so maybe that's why. The other thing, and I kind of felt bad, Mackenzie, because you had campaigned pretty hard for us to do Following, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the second week in a row where that has sort of factored in. We talked about how the success of Following, he basically is what got him the funding for Memento, right? Like he was going around and trying to get funding for Memento. And then with this, Christopher Priest was on the fence about who to give the director rights to this film. And he watched Following and was like, okay, Christopher Nolan's got the job. So now I feel like if we ever do maybe we'll do another Nolan movie in another month, but we should do Following.
Maybe next time he'll listen to me, you guys. I just want, it's on record. Yeah. It's being recorded. I love this for me. So I don't know. Maybe next time I'll win.
You know what? We're not going to do The Dark Knight anymore. Fuck the audience vote. We're going to do Following. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. Let's blow through the cast here, because it's actually a pretty decently sized cast. Hugh Jackman, as we mentioned, aka Wolverine, is here as our Robert Angier. He has been in a bazillion things, as we know. Logan, all the Wolverines, Les Mis, The Greatest Showman. We've talked about this before. This fucker is well-rounded. He can do pretty much anything, I think. Christian Bale, who plays Alfred Borden, our other magician here. Again, we've talked about him before. We're going to talk about him next week. All the Batman stuff. He was in American Psycho, as we know, and also another American movie, which I thought was fun, American Hustle. He's got like I wonder how many of his are American whatever.
That was in Ford versus Ferrari. We've done a lot of Christian Bale.
Do we have a secret crush on Christian Bale? We didn't realize.
It's not secret for me. I definitely have
He is pretty great. I also really loved his DVD commentary. We'll get into it later. But anyways, he's a funny guy in an interview for sure. Michael Caine, the man, the myth, the legend, just gem, plays Cutter. He gets another like great meaty monologue here, as he always should in his movies, I think. But again, all the Batman movies. One of my personal favorites of his is the original Italian Job, so I had to mention that. He's also done a ton of other stuff, including like Cider House Rules, and then I saved some others for next week, because he's coming back next week for us.
92 years young, still with us. Shout out,
and just crushing it.
Yeah.
And he's just like in all the Nolan movies, to be fair. He
did like 6 or 7 in a row. I wasn't going to bring that up, but like you think about this, and I think he was in Interstellar as well. Was he in Dunkirk? I assumed he was, but I don't remember.
I think that he is. Gary Oldman is. One of them is. I think it's Gary Oldman. Okay. Anyway, but yes, and then he's in Inception and this and the Batmans. Yeah, they just, they love each other, because obviously. And then Scarlett Johansson plays Olivia Winscombe. We've talked about her before, obviously Lost in Translation, all the Avengers, recently in a Wes Anderson, Asteroid City, speaking of Wes Anderson. And then Rebecca Hall, who plays Sarah. She has been she's one of those actresses who's like so consistently good and in these kind of like supporting type of roles so consistently. She's been in a bazillion things, and she's one of those that it's actually hard to remember all the things she's been in, but she was in Vicky Cristina Barcelona, which is a Scarlett Johansson film as well. And then she was also in The Town, is one of the ones that I really like that she was in, but she's been in a ton of stuff.
She's also done some sort of out there indie, I don't know if I would call them both horror, but the first one is she was in The Night House, which was actually pretty unsettling, and it was almost a one-woman show. Very much worth watching if you're looking for like kind of a haunting film. And then she was in The Gift, which is more of like a psychological way. Actually, Jason Bateman's in that one. Yeah. So second Arrested Development reference of the day. But yeah, that one's just fucking creepy and unsettling. It's not really a horror movie.
Is it a remake? I haven't seen that version. Is it a remake of the prior Gift?
think so. It's like a dude who went to high school with Jason Bateman shows up, and he used to bully him and stuff. And Jason Bateman's got this really nice life now and a beautiful family. And this guy shows up and is like, "You treated me like shit in high school, and it's even 20 years later, and you've grown up. Like, I'm gonna make your life a living hell."
Yeah. Okay. Not the same. But sounds interesting. Okay, next up, Piper Perabo, who plays Julia McCullough. She has been probably most well known for her turn in Coyote Ugly, but also recently she's in a lot of TV, but one of the most recent TV shows she was in that I think is really popular, people know her for, is Yellowstone. So, you still haven't watched that, right? You haven't seen that?
I need to, because actually a girl I went to high school with had like a 2-episode stint on Yellowstone, and I keep meaning to watch it to support her because we were in theater class together. But yeah, shout out Ashley Platts. Congrats. You made it.
Nice. Congrats. Solid show. Good for you. David Bowie obviously plays Tesla, which I think is just like such a great role for him. Also, he was literally Christopher Nolan's only choice, and he said no. And Christopher Nolan was like, no to your no. You have to do it. And he eventually won him over, and I think it's such a good pick, to be honest. It's really great.
You got a favorite Bowie song?
Oh God, that feels impossible.
I'm putting you on the spot. We did not rehearse this, but
I know, and I think it's rude. But I mean, I think he can kind of do anything. He's kind of allowed to do anything. So, you know,
really, I would go Modern Love. I think Modern Love's probably my favorite. And I would say Heroes if it wasn't for the fact that Wallflowers covered it. Not because they did a bad job. They did a good job. But I discovered the song through them, and then like 5 years later realized it was a cover and went back and got the Bowie version. But I like his better.
I like Heroes. I like Space Odyssey. I mean, who doesn't? I like Starman. I mean, I like all the like hits, but I know that there's like some Dark Horse shit that is probably better that I could think of. But
Scary Monsters and not Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites. That's a Skrillex song. Scary Monsters Super Creeps. Is that what the Bowie one's called? That's an underrated Halloween song. We just got out of October, so
that's true. That is true. There's so many good Halloween songs. Speaking of, anyway, sorry, I digress.
Let's go down that rabbit hole.
I was gonna say we can't do that. We can't do that right now. I'll spend way too long on that. Speaking of David Bowie, though, he's been in a lot of shit. He did Labyrinth, as we well know, Zoolander, The Man Who Fell from Earth. He's made lots of like very strategic appearances, I would say, but always an interesting turn every time. And then to round us out, Mr. Andy Serkis plays Allie, and he has been obviously in 1 bazillion things, tons of voice work, but most well known from Lord of the Rings. But he also did Planet of the Apes and recently Venom. I think he's even like in the most recent version of Venom. So he's done a bazillion things. Most incredible voice work. This is the most normal I think we see him.
Is this actually his face, or is he mocapping into another human being role in this? Just curious.
I don't know. I think it can't be his face. I don't think we ever see his real face.
I don't think we've ever actually seen Andy Serkis's face.
I don't think it's his real
wouldn't
face.
That be a fucking twist? Yeah, he goes to get in like his. I'm sure he already has a star on the Chinese Theater Walk of Fame or whatever, but that'd be funny.
He must. And if he doesn't, petition for Andy Serkis because like he deserves one.
90-year-old Japanese woman. That's what Andy Serkis actually is.
He's like the guy in this movie. This is the act.
Yeah,
this is like the whole thing is the act. I love it.
We figured it out. We cracked the case.
We did. We solved problems on this podcast. Just so y'all know, we know all the mysteries at the end of the day. Okay, last like honorable mention that I have no references for. I did not look him up, but the judge is the butler from The Nanny, and that's just for you Nanny fans out there. You're welcome.
The Nanny, the TV show.
The TV show, yeah. Okay. You 90s babies with no cable like myself will know who I'm talking about. And he's pretty great as the butler and The Nanny. So anyway, I thought it deserved a shout out. Okay, so quick plot summary. It's another fire IMDb plot summary. Rival 19th century magicians engage in a bitter battle for trade secrets.
Yeah. I was like really excited for the IMDb plot summary on this one because I'm like, if you read it as a sentence, it sounds pretty fucking nerdy. We've already talked about sort of some of the silliness of magic, But I was just like, two magicians are trying. It sounds like a
Yeah,
90s
it's like,
sitcom. Like they're trying to outduel each other and sabotage each other's acts. It's very like Saved by the Bell or something.
yes, I just imagine them in their backyards, like blowing shit up by accident,
Yeah.
while like throwing stuff over each other's fence or something ridiculous. Yeah, it sounds very petty. It's much more hardcore than that. Don't get it twisted. One more shout out. David Julian is our composer here. I think one, in general, it's always important. I'm gonna try and get better at mentioning that. But two, the music in Christopher Nolan films, especially, I think becomes really important, including in this one. And he's done several of his. He has not done the next one that we'll talk about, but he's done several. And then in terms of reception, so speaking about the budgets just building and building, so like we talked about, last week for Memento, he had built that following into a bigger budget for Memento. Memento was a huge success, and that blew up into this budget, which is 40 million, which at this point is way more than he's had to date. So you'll just see like over time his budgets just get bigger and bigger because he keeps cranking out bangers. This one made 109 million at the box office for one that was like 77% from critics, like pretty solid.
That's I don't remember even seeing that much marketing for this film when it came out. So I'm actually surprised to hear that it, doubled, almost tripled its budget or whatever.
I feel like it's because like they probably didn't try that hard after The Illusionist. They're like, listen, they beat us to the punch. Like I don't know, but yeah, I do remember seeing it in theaters though. So they did something with it. But all right, do we want to throw down a spoiler warning? Is it spoiler time for these babes who might not have seen it? Okay, kids, turn around.
Go watch it. It's so good.
Yeah, like what are you doing if you're? I don't understand. But turn around, don't drown. It's spoiler time. Okay. Are we just going to talk about how much we love this movie for another 45 minutes?
The first comparison I made was like Nolan, this and Memento like kind of go hand in hand of rewatchability, I think, of all his films, because the more you watch it, you pick up on all these things. And even just the opening sequence of showing the hats out in the field, you're like, oh, I get that now. But all the setup and all the foreshadowing, I think there's some of that in Inception too. But really, I think this and Memento are the ones where you can just watch it 800 times and still pick up on new things.
Yeah, I would totally plus one that, because like I have seen this many, many times. I own this. But even when you just like take a beat on watching this for a little while, you can kind of see it with a fresh pair of eyes, because it's complicated enough, not like so complicated you can't figure it out, but it's complicated enough that even on rewatch, you're trying to remember like little tendrils of the story of like, wait, what happens there again? Or, oh, who is that again? So it's not a full clean rewatch, but it is, you're finding new things every time. And there's so much nuance to the story that I think makes it really compelling on a rewatch.
With that in mind, I'm going to ask you this right off the bat. So we're going to jump straight to the end, because I think without talking about like how this ends and all the twists and how they play, you can't really talk about the beginning stuff. So were you able to predict the first time you watched this any of the myriad of twists that end up popping out here? Because I feel like I saw none of it coming, which is shocking when I rewatch and see how quote unquote obvious some of this should be.
I did figure out the transported man pretty early. Yeah. I do remember that.
The twin thing?
The brother thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the one I should have seen coming. Like literally you rewatch this and you're like, that is clearly Christian Bale in makeup. Like, how do I not see that?
But I do think, like, again, I think you can see it better now because you watched it the first time. Because if you look at him, like the costuming and the makeup is really good. And they make a point, if for those of you who go back and watch this, they make a point to not linger on him. Like you never linger on him.
It's like Jaws. You see more as the movie goes on.
There's so many great shots. Like we have to talk about the shots here, but like there's so many great shots in this film, but it's so intentional with him. Like he's being shot from behind walking down a hallway. He's being shot grabbing a thing from this angle. He's being shot slightly in shadow. He's being shot with his head down and his glasses on. Like he is very intentionally shot. So I don't think it's something that like, on a first watch, I don't think it's something that is super obvious. I had the benefit of watching it in the theater, which I think makes a difference. It's a giant screen, literally. And I also I remember the hand thing was really telling for me with him. And then there is one shot kind of early on where you're like, wait a minute. And it's not super obvious. It's like a split second, but there is one shot kind of early on where you're like, ooh, is that? And I think there were just other things that validated it as
It
all.
just
But I
blew
think
my
it's very subtle.
mind. It blew my mind on this rewatch that literally in the last, 10 or 15 minutes, they show him like front and center. Like we said, you see more of him as the movie goes on. In the last few, like in the prison scene, they show his face full on. And even you kind of have to squint to see it. But it's like, how did I still not catch this? To your point of what you said, though, of they're very creative with how they shoot this. There's a scene, and I had forgotten in my head how this went. I'm like, wait, don't they eventually like kidnap Fallon and bury him alive or something? And yes, that happens. And I was like, how did they not notice that that was him? And then I realized they had him fall into the trap. He gets into the coffin. They immediately nail it shut, which explains away that potential plot hole. So I thought that was, again, brilliant writing.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't go so far as to say there are no loopholes in Christopher Nolan and Jonathan Nolan writing of their films, but I would say it's pretty tight. They cover a lot of bases, and so I do think, they really do this really intentionally with the story and the timing of what they show. The Illusionist is a little bit similar, but I think this film does it way better, actually. And I think that that's one of the things it suffers from having released a couple months later. Both of them are playing a lot with time and when things are happening at certain points and from different perspectives. And this one does it really well.
I wrote down the number for that too, because we talked about this in Memento, and I was like, this might have the most narrative shifts of all time because it was 140 something. This Prestige is also like 140 something narrative shifts. So it's constantly jumping back. It's not the same method that Memento is using, obviously, but we are skipping forward, skipping back, and you're just sort of thrown into the deep end of having to keep track of it.
And they're leading you. They don't want you to like have no semblance of understanding of what the mystery is here, but they're giving you breadcrumbs. I think like slowly giving you a little bit more. And like, so here's a narrative shift that gives you like one more little clue. And then, a few minutes down the road, here's a narrative shift that gives you one more little clue. And as soon as you sort of feel comfortable with the way it's going, that's when the shifts happen. I think the timing and the pacing of those is so well done and so intentional of like, oh, okay, now I got to get a handle on this new situation.
Yeah,
and it's disconcerting enough that while they are giving you a clue and giving you a hint, you're still adjusting by the time you see the hint, see the clue. And I think that's why it plays so well in terms of timing and trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, it keeps you on your toes. I think the same way that Oppenheimer eventually did. Like, not in like, it doesn't time skip as much as this, but we talked about that when we covered Oppenheimer, of like the momentum that movie carries. If there is not a dull fucking moment, there's no silence, there's constantly dialogue and things happening. For a movie that doesn't have any action sequences, that movie just trucks along through 2.5 hours. I think this does the same. I think that breaks down to like a narrative shift every 60 seconds. That's the average. So like every 60 seconds you were jumping to another point in time. Go ahead.
And I think that segues really well into how it is shot, actually, because like the narrative shifts are so integral to telling this story, especially in a cohesive flow that doesn't give everything away, like we're saying. But I think we're seeing some shifts. I think relatively early shifts of him playing with different types of shooting. I think he's playing with I was listening to him talk about this in the Blu-ray commentary, like I was saying, of like that shot in the 360-degree room, that first backstage moment that we get of Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Scarlett Johansson, and Michael Caine. They're all in that room together, and you're getting this 360 constant rotation of they are moving around the room as normal, and the camera is watching and moving in between them all. And that was shot intentionally with one camera, one overhead light, and they had to move around their space as normal and do it in like one take, right?
Like staging it like theater, almost like
it's like staging it like theater, and you're also immersed in it. So like it's being blocked like theater, but it's in the round. It's theater in the round, and so it's like it was really interesting and compelling how he shot it. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think this is the first time he's done it. And you see him do it later. We're going to talk about it next week. He does it again, but this is him first playing with that, and that being really hard to control in terms of lighting, in terms of the shot and the script and all that. But the actors even said it makes you feel more in the moment. You're able to focus more on your lines and the characters, and you're in the middle of this room having this what feels like really authentic interaction with these people, and you get really immersed because the camera's just doing its thing around you. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, you used the word earlier. What did you say when I said the thing about like the single, not using a second unit, was not controlling? What was the
control?
word?
Yeah, like his need to control. Yeah,
I was gonna say, in addition to that, a word to describe Christopher Nolan in cinematic history is like ambitious. He just seems to want to try all different kinds of things, even during a Memento. Like, let's do half of the movie in black and white, and it'll be fucking going backwards. If you've never seen Memento, go watch that too, obviously. But yeah, ambitious is just such a great word to describe him.
Ambitious, and I think you can be ambitious and not execute, right? He's ambitious and meticulous.
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau is ambitious, and he crushed it with The Room, but everything after that was not great. So,
who would have thunk that those two would have come up in the same conversation? Is all I'm gonna say. But yeah, he also ambitious, not quite as meticulous, I would say for sure. But yeah, he's just his attention to detail, and I also just think that credit has to be given where it's due. To his collaborators, right? Like, we talk in general about his troupe of players, and I think that continues to be true. We see it here. We're going to continue to see some of these people in his future work, of course, but his non-screen collaborators, his off-screen collaborators, are just as incredible and important. Like, the cinematographer here is the one who's taking and executing this idea that's really difficult. His lighting design is struggling with how to light this room where everybody is lit the same way in this one scene. And it was one light, and how do you execute that in a way that is basically fits this vision, his very meticulous vision. I think that's so impressive.
Yeah, it's got to be a system of trust and, honestly, delegation of, you're going to let people know what you want, but you trust them enough to get the job done.
And his wife, let's call that, like, she's the producer on the film. Like, she's on most of it. I can't remember if we may have talked about it on Memento. I can't remember if she's on Memento, but she is his partner in crime on almost all of these in terms of production. And she, like, that is a production value, right? Like, that is somebody making sure that everything is aligning, the coordination is happening, the teams are working together. And I think we have to give credit where it's due, that he found a partner who could really help him execute these kinds of visions.
I want to know if they do have sex and record it in their bedroom. How is he framing that? Like, I want to know, how creative does Christopher Nolan get, and how ambitious is he with his vision of...
you're such a dude. You're being such a bro right now.
I'll get back to the story.
Cut. Moving on.
Back to the story. I wanted to really focus on the other thing that I love. We talked about the foreshadowing of the twin thing, and this is not really foreshadowing, but I love the mirroring throughout this of the two different magicians and their journeys, not just his characters, but the way that, they both eventually lose their lovers, and they both do the journal trick of, like, faking a journal just to fuck with the other guy and, like, get him down the wrong path. I just love how much of it's just this it's not even a cat and mouse game. It's like a mouse and mouse game, or cat and cat game. Take your pick. I just think it's so cool how this movie breaks down, and just their journeys mirror each other throughout.
Yeah, and I mean, and even think about the mirror thought process there, the mirror analogy. It's like a mirror facing a mirror and all the reflections of the mirror they're in. Like, I think that's what's happening in this story, because there are all those layers. There's the Fallon and the Borden. There's Danton, and I think his actual name is Crowland, right? Or Crowland, whatever.
I call him Stu Jackman.
Stu Jackman.
I don't know what his actual character's name is, but
so helpful right now. No, he's like Lord Crowland, something like that, whatever his actual identity is. Because remember, he's covering up his true identity to protect his family, and that gets revealed later. And so, like, we have two hidden identities, and I picture all of them, like, just visually in my mind, of standing in front of a mirror that's in front of a mirror and just seeing these reflections of these different characters back and forth, because there are just those layers. That's how many layers are to these varying identities. And to your point, this cat and cat, mouse and mouse, whatever back and forth that they're having, and how it ripples through those different identities and has a lasting impact.
Yeah, the mirroring element is fascinating to see every time I rewatch them sabotaging each other. Like there's kind of the back and forth of the bullet catch fuck up and then the bird cage fuck up. Not the movie, the prop in this film. And
I was going to say the bird cage is a masterpiece. So clearly we're not talking about that movie.
Yeah, no, that was not fucked up at all. But I like how they constantly reference the comparison between the two of one is a great magician and the other is a great showman. And I like how that plays out as well. If they're jealous, basically, of the other one's ability to do the other half of their job better than them.
And if you think about it, like, I mean, gosh, there's so many layers to this. But like, if you think about what they could have done with that, right? What could they have done with if they just chose to complement one another's acts?
Right.
You know, what if they had stopped being, you know, basically working together to help this other magician's show? What if they went into business for themselves and together and complemented each other? But you have this, I mean, to be fair, you have this critical, pivotal moment in the plot where his wife dies. Danton's wife dies.
Yeah, and not really any coming back from that, I guess, is like a
and there's no coming back from that. Yeah. But you also, I think this is where we can start talking about his obsession, right? Is like, this is where his obsession begins of, you don't know what knot you tied, right? Like it actually reminds me in a future state of the Inception concept that Christopher Nolan deals with later, of like, once you plant this idea and it becomes this seed that grows, you can never undo it. And I think for Danton, it's his search for what happened, which knot did you tie? Are you responsible for the state of things? And insofar as you can't tell me, I've extrapolated that idea out into this larger obsession. And that is what keeps fueling me and fueling me and fueling me. And it fuels every motion after that. And I think that we see that throughout for him. And I think that's the part where Borden is kind of responding to that. You do get a sense of, he really doesn't know. He seems genuinely to not know, even in the moment at the funeral, to not remember what he did.
I was going to ask, do you think that he doesn't remember, or do you think he is just at that point talking to the other brother, like the twin that didn't actually tie the knot, so he doesn't fess up to it? Like,
I think it's probably the latter, but I think it's presented, it's a big enough trauma that it could be the former. It's meant to be, you know, ambiguous. Of just like, I really don't know. I think that's what's kind of fascinating about this kind of story too, right? Of like, it would be understandable if it was the trauma, and it would be understandable if it wasn't the same guy. And it would also explain, you know, his willingness to even do the knot. I mean, we can tell that the Fallon and the Borden of the world are going to handle the same situation very differently. And and the fact that, you know, Robert never figures this out, you know, until obviously way too late. He just like, this guy has become a representation of everything that he wanted. And you can see how that wound would fester. You can see how it would turn into an obsession. I think what's interesting and terrible about him is he takes it so far, to your point about the showman of it all, is like, the need to be a showman begins to supersede everything. He slips up when he's talking to Olivia, where he's like, I don't care about my wife. I care about a secret.
That one, that hurts. That is like, I mean, that happens with like 20, 30 minutes left in the movie, but that's when he's sort of broken. And you, for the most part in this film, you're like, well, they're both kind of dicks, but I can see where they're like, each one is coming from. But I think that's where you finally turn on the Robert character, and you're like, oh, this guy is purely selfish
because he's going off the rails.
Obsessed. I also, to the point earlier of like the magician showman thing, I like that they have Borden sort of identify every trick without even a hesitation. Like, he just has an eye for it. So he's the one who understands that the one magician is pretending to, you know, have not pretending to be elderly, but pretending to be in poorer health in order to pull this trick off. He immediately knows that Angier is using a double. Like, he's like, oh yeah, he comes off and suddenly he's drunk when I see him later that night. Like, he sees the trap door in the later transported man or whatever it's called. Like, I like that they have him just immediately latch onto everything. So when he finally can't figure out what the one secret is, that's what ultimately leads us to the climax, right?
And I think, like, to your point about the him seeing everything, like, he knows that guy because he is that guy. You know, I love that he can identify the guy who the whole thing is an act, because that's the life he's living. But at the point that he's saying that, you don't know that, right? He can see himself in this man because he's saying his whole life is the act. Everything that you get to see, that you are allowed to see, is the act. And I think that's why he can identify it so clearly, and he can see through other people, because he is this master illusionist. He is this master manipulator, and he can recognize it in others, and he can recognize it even in Robert. And what I think he sees in Robert before most other people do, us included even, is the potential mania. Because, like, when he can't figure it out, he's like, this, to your point, it is not an identifiable trick, right? There's something really wrong here. And he knows in his gut that it feels really wrong. And that's what's, I think, leads us, to this climax that's just horrifying, the things that he is willing to do to put on this show and to win. You know?
Yeah, quote unquote win, for sure. I don't want to wrap up right away. I wanted to sort of do the other side of the coin really quick, because I feel like we've said Angier has this tipping point where it's like, we don't like him anymore. Like, we called the drink Danton's obsession for a reason. But I do think we should, give Borden a little bit of shit. It is kind of fucked up that he's like two men dating one woman, or married to one woman and fathering a child. And then as it plays out, obviously it eventually starts to spiral. And now one of them has a lover on the side, and it complicates things. And eventually, like, they are the cause for his wife's suicide, like, directly. The whole not today, I don't love you, that line is like just as heartbreaking.
That's
as
fucking
Angier's.
Fallon. And that's horrible. That's horrible. Yeah. And I think, like, you're totally right. I think we have to give some villainy, share some villainy here across all, arguably 3, maybe 4 of our personas here, because he chose this life as this act, and he met this woman mid-act, right? He's already started the act. So he met Sarah in this state, and he chose to bring her into that, and he decided it was manageable. And I also think, like, what predicated the need for that in terms of Sarah, right? Why did he have to be in front of Sarah? Why couldn't they coordinate that, right? What was it about them switching back and forth that couldn't be a change or be evolved? And I think it's that inflexibility of the act, right? They have a routine, they have a formula that works, and they're not going to compromise it for anybody. And as much as he loves Sarah, does he love her enough to shut down the act, to love the magic less than her? And the answer, even for him, for Borden, is no. And I think, like, that's the heartbreaking thing, is that even when he says he loves her and she believes it, he still loves the magic more.
Yeah, you're watching two characters. It's very, like, it's a traditional thing in Shakespeare to have tragic ambition. I think in this, you're watching two characters do the same form of tragic ambition. It's slightly different, obviously, but it plays out the same. So
yeah, and I think it leads to, again, like, that terrible line being said to her. But listen, don't fuck with a woman's intuition. I gotta tell you, like, it didn't take that one thing to be said, right? It took a million things to happen that were subtle or small or hurtful in a big way and hurtful in a tiny way. It took her feeling disconnected from this person, because
so you feel like she completely figured it out? Because she kind of hints at that with that line of dialogue of, I know what you are. You think she's got it 100% figured out?
I don't think she has 100%. I think she feels 89% sure, or whatever, right? I think she's very sure, but she loves this man enough to question it, to question mark it, and to not make him give it away, because she loves him, really, truly, I think loves him, and knows that this is that important to him, right? That he's done this potentially, that he's taken the act to this degree, and she doesn't want to force him to out himself. But I think it also makes her question him, right? His love for her, of, if you could put me through this and never tell me and let me be exposed to this brute, then do you really love me? And like the despair spiral that would put you into, it really makes a lot of sense that she ended up where she did, even though it's devastating. You know,
Yeah.
what else is she questioning, right? Is she questioning their child? Is she questioning their marriage? Is she questioning the parentage of that? Is she feeling violated? What is she feeling that he can't possibly justify?
I
You
don't.
know?
I'm not going to agree or disagree with your take because I don't know how I feel about it. In the moment on this rewatch, I was like, I don't know if she is literally spelling out the twist for us. Like she knows that what we don't at that point yet. I will say I
Yeah.
read that Rebecca Hall actually improvised that line, and she thought she was going to be in trouble because she thought that if they kept that line in, it would basically ruin the twist. Clearly it doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't pick up on it the first time. I thought she just meant you're a monster, like why are
Yeah.
you being so like disloyal to me and blah blah blah. But I wanted to jump into the way you talked earlier about the way that things are shot in this, and god damn it, is that the suicide, like the hanging scene, trigger warning here, but like the way that is shot in with like the canaries or the birds in there tweeting and whatnot, and the way that is rough to watch. Like I don't know.
It is so rough to watch. The juxtaposition of these beautiful birds who we have also seen get sacrificed over and over again because they're part of the trick, they're on the stage, etc., and her to do this in that place and be reminiscent of this trick. It's like she can't remove herself from the show. She's just another part of this show, and she becomes the bird in the cage who gets sacrificed for the sake of the magic, for the sake of the art and the
That's a
story.
subtext I didn't even pick up on. I like that messaging a lot. I mean, it's a fucked up message, but
It's
the way
super
you
fucked
just said
up,
it makes
but
it's very smart. Yeah.
and it's I mean, as terrible as it is to physically see it, because it's awful. It's shot so well, to your point, and it hits you in phases. You kind of know where it's going, but somehow even when it happens, you're just like, oof. And it's one of the many examples in this movie where I think the contrast, like the composition of the shots, is actually so strong in terms of like dark and light contrast and composition in a frame, and the way that she's physically hanging in this shot is and the way they zoom in on her and they zoom in on her hands, and just it's all these subtle shots that I think really give it this haunting quality.
It's also interspersed with like the memories of when they met and
Yeah.
like her having good memories, and you could tell what's going through her mind. And yeah, that hard like cut to just you hear that sound effect is pretty rough. But yeah.
And you watch it devolve for her too. You
Yeah.
watch, like you're saying, it's the cut through the memories of like how she got here. And so I think that can be really hard. But yeah, the set design here, and also the set design throughout, is really kind of incredibly done. Like the advertisements that are everywhere, like they were trying to give this Victorian era Tokyo early chaotic advertisement, which was really prevalent at this time. But that was the energy they were trying to give in this Victorian era. And I think it comes through. Like the set design on this is so strong, and the world that they create, both with the costumes and the production design and the set design, is it creates these scenes. I mean, that scene doesn't have the impact that it does without all of those pieces put together.
I think the sign of a good, like, I wouldn't call this a period piece, but just a movie that puts you in the time that it's taking place and is immersive, is that you never think about it. Like you never notice how good it looks because you're just in it. But you're at the same time, you're not doing the negative of being like, oh, that looks super like too new or too
well,
like,
and it's stylized period, because it's not true period, right? Like it's Victorian era, but it's stylized, and like some of these colors even wouldn't be used, right? He gives this warmth and this tone and this color with everything that he does that's very intentional. And yeah, you're just immersed, to your point. Nothing jumps out as being not a part of this story.
Yeah, I guess we can like segue into like how this all wraps up. I will say before we get there that I know who your favorite character in this is.
Who's that?
Some random dude. I don't know the character's name. He has gray hair and he I think he owns the theater, but he gets called up and they're doing the bird trick. And he says to Hugh Jackman, "You best not be intending on hurting this animal,
You
boy."
better not hurt this animal. Yeah,
And I
he's
was
the
like,
theater
that's
owner.
Mackenzie's favorite
Fuck yeah.
character.
Also, I have in my notes here multiple times, the bird trick, I hate it. The bird trick, I hate it. I can't with the hurting of the animals. I'm not into it. Yeah.
Which also I mean, you brought up that incredible point about the birds in that last sequence we talked about. The birds are very symbolic of a lot that happens in this. At the start, he says to one of the two birds in the trick, "You're the lucky one today." And that's how we ultimately get to this finale, right? And then Sarah's son says, like, "Well, what about his brother? Where's his brother?" He understands what's going on with the trick, and that's kind of what impresses Borden to be like, "Your son's really sharp. He understands what's going on here." But that's what brings us. And
it's the recurring theme that they tee up for us is like, this is an ongoing trick. It's an ongoing brother trick. It's an ongoing twin trick. It's an ongoing mirrored character persona trick. It is one layer after another just being uncovered. And I think it's very much Christopher Nolan using filmmaking as a magic trick, right? Like, many of his films begin to follow a similar structure, right? Of like, I'm going to slowly unravel this mystery for you. And I'm going to slowly, with these narrative shifts and with these camera angles and with these tendrils of lines that give you a clue, but not the whole story, slowly give you a magic trick. I'm going to give you the pledge. I'm going to give you the turn. I'm going to give you the prestige in the film. And
I'm going to give you the Tenet. People loved that one, right? Didn't he do that in Tenet? I didn't see it because I heard such good things.
Tenet was not as bad as people thought it was. It's just the most complicated outing of his.
Okay.
I mean, it's the most complicated of his. I think it's fair to say. He really reaches with that one. But yes, I think all I'm saying is I think that this emulates what the style that has kind of become his style and what he's trying to do. I think he's trying to complete a magic trick every time.
I think by accident we're actually ending up doing these films in order. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but we're gonna have the four movies that we're doing. Yeah. Like we are building up to it, and like we're seeing, to your point, the budgets are going to get bigger, and his creativity and his ambition as a director is going to get bigger. So that's pretty cool to see. You had said something that triggered this thought in my head of, as we're segueing into the finale here, the bigger twist here is that they use science as magic, and it's almost like, not that magic is real per se, but I mean, cloning is in this film. Yeah. And that was another thing where the whole movie, you're assuming it's just going to be like, they're really good magicians. That's the twist. And then it turns out we get this out of left field scientific twist that like punches you right in the mouth.
Well, I think it's like, it's putting you in that moment in time too, right? There are so many moments in history where science has been magic. Discoveries have been magical. It's gone from alchemy to chemistry, right? Like, we didn't know what it was, and then now we understand the formulas. And I think these are some of the few people and communities who are willing to explore those theories really in depth and kind of brave these things that, yeah, definitely on their face purely look like magic. And they're really science. But I think the magic is in the showmanship. Again, it's what you decide to do with the thing that you've uncovered, with the science that you've uncovered. And we see like a real perversion of that from Robert. And that's the thing, is like 100 shows, right? Do you know what that means? That means he was willing to kill 100 versions of himself. Yeah. That's the reality. So it's a real perversion of the science. And I think that's where like you just see the corruption of this art form into what we see at the end.
Yeah, David Copperfield would be fucking pissed. Like, he just wants to make the Statue of Liberty disappear. He's never killed himself on stage or a version of himself. Like, yeah.
All this so he could be the one to take the bow, right? Think about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill 100 clones so I can take the bow. Pretty bad.
So as we move into that, we get kind of the reveal. We circle all the way back. I do like how the movie comes, it's not the same exactly as Memento's formatting, but I like how we it's almost like Frankenstein. Like, we build from the outside in, and then we circle eventually back. When you read the book Frankenstein, it's kind of a story within a story within a story. And that's how this sort of operates, because we start with Cutter and his daughter and Borden's daughter. doing the thing. We eventually at the very end get back to that moment, right? But prior to that, we get the lead up to this final trick where we assume that Angier has died, and we see how it actually plays out. But then we get the reveal of Lord Cordlow or whatever showing up, and holy shit, it's been Wolverine the whole time. So what were your thoughts like as you're watching this play out? Like, did you think that he was alive this whole time as the movie was playing on?
Yeah, I mean,
they never show the body prior to this, right? You see him in the tank when he first drops in there, but do they ever actually show
You see the tank and you see him slow, but you never see him die. And I think that's...
they hide the bodies intentionally because there's like 100 of them down there. So we don't actually
No, I know,
see
but
his
I'm just
body.
saying even that first cut of that scene where you see Christian Bale at the beginning, you have no other context and you're going, he's discovering this thing and what's happening. Like, there's enough of a question mark as to how that scene ends that you don't even assume that that guy died. I mean, you can, but I don't think it's confirmed, right? I don't think even in that first cut is it confirmed that he died. It's confirmed that he's trapped in there, that it's slowing, and
then we cut to the court scene.
Yeah. And then you get the court scene, right? And so you're like, but he is so indignant also that he didn't do this. And I think you're meant to question, is he indignant because he had nothing to do with it? Even though he looks on it with like almost wonder of what's happening, but you don't know why at this point. Or is he indignant because it was a trick? Like something else happened, whether it's this guy got out and didn't tell anyone and ran away, or if it, like, what is the trick? And I think that's the whole point, is this whole thing is, what is the trick? What's the reveal behind the trick? And I think they're, I think of this so much in terms of Christopher Nolan using magic as filmmaking, right? Because he even says, he's like, you wonder why we do this. And he asks them, like, you never ever understood, you never remembered why we do this. It's the look on their faces. It's the wonder. It's the question, right? It's the look on their faces. And think about how this movie unfolds and how you discover this ending, and imagine what the looks were on the faces of the audience at that time, right? Like, what was the look of wonder? Like, wow, like, what a reveal. So
I like the call out where they say, I think it's after the first transport, I don't know if it's called the Transported Man, whichever one Borden does, where they don't show you the actual trick the first time, but it's the bouncing ball across the stage, and then the twin steps out. And I like that they just show you the audience, and they're like, did the audience go wild? And he's like, no, they didn't clap. They didn't know what they had just seen. They were kind of just blown away by it. I like that moment that you don't actually see the trick and you just see the audience confused. That kind of speaks to what you're talking about, of just being amazed.
Being amazed, and also being the magician and not being the showman of like, how do I present this in the way? And he's the one who ups the ante and presents it in a way that they can like have this shock and awe and wonder. And also the thing that clues to them that it's a trick, that it's not magic, that it's a trick. And they're okay being tricked, and they're okay being fooled. And I think that's just one of these themes throughout, of like, there are these themes of how much do I want to know, and how much do I want to be fooled? And it's so funny because they're like, the thing is you're okay with being fooled. You're not really looking that closely. You're not looking for the secret. And that's part of what sells these stories. And I deeply do not relate to that. I immediately want to solve it. So I'm always like, no, I want to figure it out.
I mean, praise be Michael Caine. That is a pretty killer speech that he gives.
Oh God,
he
every single
bookends
one.
The movie for us. Like, it's great.
He should just always talk at us. It's glorious. Yeah.
We just have a movie where it's just him and Morgan Freeman having a conversation for
just
like
fucking
who we're going to talk about next week as well. But actually, and they're both in there. So I guess we wrap things up with, Borden has been hung. Last words, abracadabra. I had to turn on the subtitles because I couldn't remember what he sort of whispers there. And then we get...
I always have subtitles. So I didn't have that problem.
I don't like it when it spoils jokes. But anyway, this wasn't the movie.
I agree with that.
Spoiled,
I understand
so maybe.
that. I understand that.
But yeah, then when we get the real Borden, I guess, showing up, I assume it's the actual Borden because it's the father of Sarah, right? So not Fallon is
Which
probably the one
I think is another level of something you could debate, but yes.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think it's Borden. I mean, Borden. There's a Borden and there's a Fallon, and whoever's the real one, TBD.
The way that he apologizes in prison
father.
And says, "I'm really sorry about Sarah," about Sarah and all this stuff. Am I mixing up names again? What's his daughter's name?
His daughter,
Jess.
but his
His wife's
Olivia name. It's Olivia is Scarlett Johansson and his wife is Sarah.
Okay.
Rebecca
He
Hall.
says, like, I'm sorry for Sarah. He says, go live for both of us. Like, he seems to be admitting that he's sort of the more emotional hothead of the two that probably fucked this up a bit, which makes me think the one who survives is the real, like, Borden who was married and had a daughter.
They both, yeah. But I think, and I can say this as a Tia because maybe it lends some credence. They both love that kid like it's their own kid, you know? And so I think it's debatable. You could make an argument like, is it both? Is it theirs or is it not? But I do think like especially as a twin, probably, you probably feel even closer to that kiddo. Like my sister's kids are like my kids and I love it. But that's the only thing that I think is maybe a little bit intentional for you to maybe question that is all I'm saying of like how much he loves the kids. Are you supposed to question who is her father and who should get to take her? But I do think, he is acknowledging totally that he was a big part of this. Cause again, to your point, like the precipitating comment and argument was probably from him. Sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, that gets us to the end here. And I think the one thing that doesn't land for me after all these rewatches is we get the reveal, we get Borden shooting Danton or Angier, and I could do without Hugh Jackman delivering the plot twist via dialogue and saying, like, out loud, a brother? A twin? You were Fallon the whole time? I could do without that line being
like laying
so
it on
the nose.
Yeah, like we figured it out at this point. We don't need you to explicitly write it into the copy. But I do, I don't know. I think we have to acknowledge like some audiences need that quick recap at the end, in some cases, especially on a first watch perhaps. But I agree. I don't love the spoon-fed lines.
I'm wondering if he says, in my head, I'm questioning now if he says a brother, a twin, or if he says a double, a twin. A double would make more sense based on everything we've heard throughout the movie of Cutter saying he's a double, it's a double, it's a double. That would actually just be a better line, just leaving that by itself of like, he's bleeding to death and him just being like a double, like, and then you're going to show the flashbacks anyway. And he's explaining how he did it. So like, we don't need the whole like 10 or 12 word explanation of what's going on.
I don't think so. And I also think like it's just an unnecessary way to wrap it up. But I also think it's a bit of a bookend on his obsession though, of like, he's dying right now. He's fucking dying and he knows it. And what he's trying to do is solve the trick, is confirm the trick. Right? This whole thing has been me figuring this out and I finally fucking did it. And he's got to say it and validate it for himself. Yeah. And I think
I figured it out. I've been shot.
I figured it out. But like, that's what I mean. I think that's more what it's about. Like, I don't need the spoon feeding, but I think that's more what it's about is one last indicator of his obsession.
Yeah. I'm fine with the way Borden spells it out for us. It's not that I don't want them to explain the twist. I just don't want it to be Hugh Jackman doing it, but I get where you're coming from of why it kind of makes sense.
I also don't think it's absolutely necessary. I'm just like, that's my only take on why you would do it that way. Yeah. But I also think it's one of those deaths that's like so perfectly timed too, that it's maybe like a little bit of a stretch of like, I got out this little monologue where I solved the thing and I figured out the trick and now he may die. And like, it's just this like overwrought kind of moment. So yeah, I don't personally need it, but I could see that being why you did it,
Yeah.
All right, friends. The end. So good though. I mean, I love this movie. I think it's clear that we both really like this movie. I don't think it's perfect by any means. I just think it's a really fun watch that has a lot of layers to it. So anywho's, what would be your rating, sir?
The first off, the only note I didn't get to today was I do like when Fallon is in prison and does the trick where he puts the shackle around the guard's leg when he's not like paying attention. I just think, a little bit of tomfoolery in prison. I feel like the Green Mile could have learned something from this and made that movie a little lighter. Like, it didn't have to be that miserable the whole time. You can have a little bit of hijinks in prison. But that being said, aside from that missed mark, I think this movie's not perfect, to your point. I think there's, especially on a first watch. I remember on first watch being like, holy, like by the end, I was like, holy shit, I need to watch this again. But that was also partially because the first time I watched it, it wasn't as captivating, I think, as what it is on rewatch. it does feel like a couple parts. So I'm trying to take myself back to the first time I watched this. I'm still going to rate it really high. I'm still going to say it's probably like a 9, dude. I really fucking love this movie, but it's not perfect. There's a couple minor things I would change, namely that last line, but it's super enjoyable. And I just think it gets more entertaining the more I watch it.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I like that you can uncover a lot of layers in it. I think one thing I didn't really touch on that I won't go into a ton of detail is that I continue to struggle with Christopher Nolan's use of women and the way that he treats them in his films. Not because they don't matter, but I do think they're relatively secondary to the plot, even when they're not, like they are not here. And that they are kind of accessories, and we are very much in a bro club. And so I don't love that. I didn't touch on that, but I don't love that. And I agree with you. Like, I don't think that last line is necessary. It gets a little cheesy. But on the whole, like, I love how they put this story together. I love the production design. I love how it is shot. I love that we're seeing him kind of like stretch and grow and start to do some different stuff and start to do the things that I think we begin to see more of in his later films that like really probably define what is a Christopher Nolan film. And we're really seeing that like come to bear here. And I think that's a really cool moment in time. So yeah, I think I would give it like an 8.5. Yeah. I think it's really good.
I think the first time I watched it, I would rate it lower. Like I would say the first time I watched it was probably an 8.5. Like the twist.
I do think it's one of those that grows on you. Yeah. Yeah.
But now I'm up to a 9 just because it's much better on rewatch. So
yeah, I think you can appreciate it more because you're not spending so much time trying to figure everything out. You're gleaning more from every single time. So I agree. I think it grows on you. I think give it a few watches and it gets better and better for sure. All right, friends. Well, thanks for hanging with us while we fangirled over Christopher Nolan for yet another ep. Be prepared for more because I think that's what's going to happen. Come back next week when we're going to talk about The Dark Knight, which was your vote. You guys picked it. You're welcome.
I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm a little worried, like, what can we say about The Dark Knight that hasn't already been said? Unless we just rip it apart and say it's fucking horrible.
But we're not gonna. Let's be honest.
Yeah, so we're gonna do our best. I was really hoping we could do Batman Begins because I just think Batman Begins is so underrated.
I fucking love Batman Begins. We could have totally done that. You want to cut it? We can tell these kids to fuck off. We can do Batman Begins instead.
No, it's okay. We're recording The Dark Knight in 5 minutes, and I already watched it. So yeah.
Well, I agree. I think it's a great movie. We'll try to find some things to complain about. So anyway, come back next week. But in the meantime,
follow us on our socials. We drink and we watch things, Instagram, TikTok, all that jazz. You can get the video of this podcast on Spotify video or on YouTube. If you've never done it before, give us a rating on Spotify. It's been a little stagnant for a minute. I know I'm looking at our listener counts. We got listeners, so make sure you're giving us an actual rating and whatnot, just to get our reach and following up a little bit on there. Appreciate it, y'all. And yeah, you can always email us as well. We drink and we watch things pod@gmail.com with, theme suggestions, movie suggestions, things we fucked up, or anything else that you want. Funny jokes. I don't know. Send us
put in a joke request for Lamar.
Yeah.
You know how I say Lamar and not me. Anyways, for now though, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.